can get the meeting started. Can I welcome everybody to this remote meeting of North Lanarkshire Council. Before we go to the business of the meeting, I would like to remind you of the functionality which will assist with the smooth running of the meeting. Unless you're speaking, can all members please ensure that your microphone is muted? If you have declared an interest in a particular item of business, the clerk will remove you from the meeting to the lobby and reinstate you once that item of business has been dealt with. Can I remind members that if you wish to declare an interest during the meeting, please type in DEC in the chat bar and hit return. If you wish to raise a point of order, please type in PO and hit return. If you wish to ask a question, please hit the space bar in the chat bar and then press return, and the clerk will notify me of the order of speakers for each individual item. Please do not use the chat bar for any other purposes. Colleagues, I'd like to remind you that the meeting is being live streamed through the Council's YouTube channel and is publicly available. The meeting will be available afterwards as an archive recording. Before we start the meeting, on behalf of the Council, I would like to extend my congratulations to Councillors Peter Kelly and Het Loughran on their election and welcome them along to their first Council meeting today. I hope you both enjoy the meeting. Have we got any apologies? Only ones I've got is Councillor O'Rourke might be slightly late for the meeting. Any other apologies?
Provost, can I put apologies in for Councillor Cullen, please?
No problem. Thank you very much. If there's no other apologies, agenda item 1 is declarations of interest in terms of ethical standards in public life Scotland. Are there any declarations of interest? Councillor London.
Thanks, Provost. I declare an interest in terms of agenda item 10. Firstly, as a member of the Integration Joint Board for Health and Social Care, North Lanarkshire, for which the code has a specific dispensation, and in addition by virtue of my part-time employment with NHS Lanarkshire, and having applied the objective test, conclude that the interest is so remote and insignificant that I'll remain and participate in this important debate, which I know is a matter of interest for all of us in the chamber today, and indeed to local people.
Councillor Fiona Fotheringham.
Thanks, Provost. I too am declaring an interest at item 10 by virtue of employment as a vaccinator at North Lanarkshire, NHS Lanarkshire. Again, I have also applied the standards objective test, and I will be participating in the debate as a matter of interest to my local communities. And I don't feel that my NHS role is remote and insignificant in terms of the outcome. Thank you.
Councillor Goldie.
Thanks, Provost. It's the same as agenda item 10. I declare an interest in that my wife is employed as a vaccinator for NHS Lanarkshire. She's responsible for not making up rotas or determined locations. And on balance, I feel this should not inhibit me from taking part in debate or vote.
Councillor Kelly.
Thank you, Provost. I'm declaring an interest in item 10 as I'm a non-executive board member of NHS Lanarkshire, and I won't be taking part in the debate and will be removing myself from the virtual chamber. Thank you.
Councillor Gallagher.
Thank you, Provost. I think there's an issue with a couple of people's chat bars today. I was going to declare an interest at item 10, but after further discussion with the Conservative group, we feel that the motion could be stood down, as we feel that significant progress has been made in relation to the issues that were raised within the motion. I think the comments on social media show the amazing work that's carried out by NHS Lanarkshire, and therefore would like to remove agenda item 10 from the meeting.
Thank you very much. What I would say is if people are having problems with their chat bar, can they go onto the chat bar? And I had to click on for everyone. And I know that others had other meetings have been having problems, but happy for Andrew's keep me informed. Anybody that's going direct to him as host. So I can deal with it that way as well if necessary. Thank you very much, Councillor Gallagher. Can we move on to agenda item 2, which the outcome of the by-elections held on the 4th of March 2021 in Ward 13 Pertisset and Ward 14 Thornywood. The results of the by-elections are enclosed for your information. Agenda item 3 is minutes of meetings of committees, subcommittees and panels for cycle 1. In accordance with Standing Order 21, the volume of minutes has been distributed to you. There are 3 C paragraphs. At page 98, paragraph 8, decisions 1 and 2 of the minute of the Education and Families Committee held on the 23rd of February 2021, and page 112, paragraphs 4 and 5 of the Finance and Resources Committee held on the 11th of March 2021. Can we approve the volume of minutes, including the C paragraphs?
Provost, just to notify you that Councillor Hume wishes to come in.
Councillor Hume.
Thanks, Provost. The C item on page 112. I note that the variation of contract was set up for 6 months. I believe that's finished this month, so is it being extended for another 6 months or another period of time? Also, in light of changes to code of conduct and things like that, are there any, in light of the experience of the period that's gone past with these changes to contracts, code of conduct, are there any requirements to make changes in light of the experience that the council has had with these new rules in the interim period?
Most of these questions were answered at the committee. I don't know if
no, they weren't, Provost.
Provost, the council is only here to agree or not agree the accuracy of the minutes, and I'm not sure there's an officer present who'd be able to answer these at this particular time. So I would suggest if we can get those answers direct to the member after the meeting, if that would be okay.
Councillor Hume will get a note of these have been taken, but if you want to follow up an email to Councillor Burrows as convener and to the officer, we'll make sure that you get an answer as early as possible.
Okay, thanks.
So can we approve the rest of the minutes? Thank you very much. Agenda item 4 is the appointment of the third religious representative. There is submitted a report by the Head of Legal and Democratic Solutions, which has previously been considered by the Education and Families Committee and remitted here seeking approval of the appointment of Graham Patterson as the third religious representative on that committee. Can we agree the appointment of Graham Patterson as the third religious representative on the Education and Families Committee?
Agreed.
Agenda item 5 is a
Provost.
Yes.
Aye, sorry, I just came in there. I sent a message to Andrew to come in just to say that I welcomed Mr. Patterson's appointment. He'll be a great asset to this council. He does fantastic work in my area and beyond, and he'll be a great asset to the residents of North Lanarkshire. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Agenda item 5 is the Treasury Management Strategy 2021-2022, Treasury Management and Prudential Indicators 2021-2022 and 2023-2024. There is submitted a report by the Head of Financial Solutions in respect of the Treasury Management Strategy for 2021-22. Colleagues, can we agree the recommendations contained within the report?
Agreed.
Agenda item 6, membership of committees, subcommittees, panels and outside bodies. Colleagues, the list of proposed amendments has been issued to you in advance of the meeting. Can we agree the recommendations as shown at the page 1 and 2 of that document? Councillor Barclay, you're wanting to come in.
Yeah, it's more to make a comment at this point, Provost. As as business manager for the SNP, and I know the other business managers, current and previous, will testify the amount of work that we have to do, where it can be spreadsheet heaven or spreadsheet hell, depending on your feeling, when we're moving people around on committees. But it's nothing compared to the amount of work that is done in the background by council officers. And when it comes to full council, this comes up and we agree it and we move on. But I really think we need to put on record, especially our thanks, and especially to Andrew Rose for the amount of work that has been done in the background, especially this week, in order to get the information that we have here. I think it's testament to the council officers that how quickly they can turn things around and the work that they have done. So I think it's just important to put on record our thanks.
I 100% agree with you, Claire. I think I've seen Andrew Rose age 100 years this week, as all the changes have come in. But, you know, he does work away diligently and make sure that him and Mark make sure that on the day of the council, we all have the up-to-date list. So thank you very much for that. So we agree that the list of changes. Agenda item 7 is a notice of motion from Councillor Beveridge and Councillor Sophia Coyle. There is no amendment indicated to your motion, Councillor Beveridge. Do you still wish to speak?
Just a 2-minute, Provost. Thanks. I'd just like to thank Sophia, Councillor Coyle, for seconding this motion. As it says, the road maintenance staff have worked tirelessly over the winter months, which I thank them for. This is just a wee slight anomaly that I'm sure will get sorted out in the future. My thanks to all political groups and independent colleagues for supporting this motion. Thank you.
Councillor Sophia Coyle.
Thank you, Chair. Obviously, thanks to Alan for asking me to second the motion, and thanks to the staff that worked hard. But obviously, there has to be a review on the winter gritting programme, as also the gritters were under pressure for getting the grit bins, and the accident rates were very, very high. So I wish everybody would second this, agree with this motion and pass it through, because we definitely need a review urgently. Thanks again.
It's unanimously agreed. Agenda item 7 is a notice of motion from Councillor Brannan McVeigh and seconded by Councillor Mooney. And there is an amendment from Councillor Fotheringham, seconded by Councillor London. Councillor McVeigh.
Thank you, Provost. I thank Councillor.
Sorry.
It's all right, Jean. You know me well. Thank you, Provost. I'd like to start by thanking Council for flying the Autism Awareness flag on this Autism Awareness Week. Autism is often said but little understood. Autism is a neurological difference. Simply put, autistic brains work differently from non-autistic brains. They see and experience the world differently from non-autistic people. A member of the community where I live raised with me this campaign, as it directly affects her nephew, and I thank Diane for raising this with myself and yourself, Provost. The Our Voices, Our Rights campaign aims to make Scotland the best country in the world for the 56,000 autistic people and 120,000 people with a learning disability and their families in Scotland, to create a country where human rights are respected and upheld, in a country where everyone has equal accesses to the services and the support that they need, a country where autistic people and people with a learning disability are active citizens and are supported fully to fulfil their potential. Aspirations I'm sure we can all agree with. Accessing services should not be an exhausting mountain to climb or a series of battles to be fought and won, yet this is the lived experience of many individuals and their families. Exclusion, ignorance and bullying are examples articulated by campaigners, as well as stigma and fear in all aspects of life. Worry that educational opportunity or independent living will not be an option, that meaningful and sustained employment will never be secured, that isolation and loneliness are to be accepted, and that a fun-filled life full of love will elude you or a relative that you do so deeply care about should have no place in the society that we live in. So I thank Enable Scotland, the National Autistic Society of Scotland, Scottish Autism, the 3 national charities working alongside autistic people and people with a learning disability and their families to campaign for much needed change, and they believe a commissioner would enable this. The commissioner would be a powerful champion for change, empowered by the lived experience of people with a learning disability and autistic people, and the data about their lives. It would work with public bodies to improve access to their human rights and to build a more inclusive Scotland, to help to close the accountability gap by working across public bodies and existing regulators to focus on the experience and needs of those people, improve the visibility of this population to make sure that their experiences inform better access to additional support in education and employment, to self-directed social care support, and to live and enable them to live independently in their community of choice, to good quality housing and healthcare and independent advocacy to ensure they control over their voices are in control of their own lives. We can all recognise that there's a plethora of legislation, policy and frameworks in this field, but sometimes they clunk together, they mismatch and there are gaps, and that does not respond to the individual. 2020 and 2021 and the COVID crisis have made this acutely aware. So if we want North Lanarkshire to be the best place to live, learn, work, invest and visit, it's imperative that we continue to lead and support where we have that experience and to learn and evolve where we do not. The Commissioner would assist us in our endeavours and we would in turn assist the Commissioner. North Lanarkshire has led work in supported employment and mentoring and supporting independent living and life choices. NLC has changed its application and interview process to better suit the needs of more people, making reasonable adjustments when employed, and it's supporting local businesses to provide sustained and meaningful employment for local people, creating diverse workplaces where friendships are formed and barriers are broken down.
1 minute.
Our education settings, whether mainstream or specialist, provide supportive learning and safe environments, stimulating education, breaking down barriers, and I believe celebrating difference as a strength and not a weakness. Mainstream, I recognise, is not always the answer, but getting it right for every child is. I recognise the work of local community organisations such as Rascals, Hope for Autism, Watch Us Grow, The Hand of Friendship, and so many others in our community. So therefore, the world needs people who think differently. In a world where everyone thinks the same, nothing would ever change. So colleagues, please support the motion and please support a Commissioner in Scotland. Thank you.
Councillor Mooney.
Thank you very much, Provost, for giving me the opportunity to speak today about our Voice, Our Rights campaign, especially during the Autism Awareness Week. There are a number of learning disabilities, not just autism. There's Williams syndrome, Rett syndrome, Prader-Willi syndrome, Asperger's syndrome, cerebral palsy, Tourette syndrome, and brain traumas. And as an aunt to a young lady with Prader-Willi syndrome, a cousin to a young man with severe cerebral palsy, and friends with several individuals with autistic children, I understand the worries of the individuals and families as highlighted by Councillor Brannan McVeigh. Councillor Brannan McVeigh highlighted that individuals with autism and learning disabilities struggle to find meaningful and sustained employment. In a survey done by the Scottish Commission for Learning Disabilities, they found that only 4.1% of adults known to local authorities were in employment, which is lower than the similar study carried out in England, which currently sits at 6%. Just 2% are training for employment and 3.4% are volunteering. In addition, Councillor Brannan McVeigh mentions about independent living being a concern. In fact, the same study showed that only 6.1% lived on their own and 14.7% lived in supporting living and the other 31% with their family. In terms of further education, only 4.9% go on to further education, either full-time or part-time. Now, having worked with a number of individuals with autism and cerebral palsy when I worked in the banking industry, I know of the fantastic work, knowledge and insight that they contributed to our teams. Indeed, they worked far harder than a great many of their colleagues. As a friend of a young person with autism, I know she's worried about her future and what lies ahead when she leaves school next year. She wants to embrace a full and fulfilled life, not just being one of the 44% who are unemployed in Scotland. By supporting this motion, this will help us move towards a future that embraces all people with learning disabilities and give them the support and the opportunities they deserve. I urge you all to support this motion today. Thank you, Provost.
Councillor Fotheringham.
Thank you, Provost, and thank you to Councillors Brannan McVeigh and Councillor Mooney in highlighting this important campaign today. Obviously, it's very significant during Autism Awareness Week, and I again also thank the Council for flying the autism flag. I completely agree with everything that's already been said today, and the campaign calls for Scotland to be the best in the world for autistic people with a learning difficulty to grow up and to live in. We should be taking this further and be aspiring for North Lanarkshire to be a local champion, to create inclusive communities for everyone to work, learn, live, invest and to visit. We would like to go one step further and just have a detailed report on what we can do to further the call at a local level to work with that ambassador, with all partners and departments throughout North Lanarkshire to ensure this inclusive community is built. From early diagnosis of autism and learning difficulties with children and faster diagnosis and help for adults living with autism. We need it within education. As Heather said, let's get it right for every child right from the start. Let's build on the recent ASN review and let's make a real difference. In planning, we need to ensure that spaces, they become the places. New town centres, we've got new town hubs. Make sure that they're consulted appropriately with experts to ensure that we get it right for everyone first time. In the communities, I've seen firsthand the difference of having an autism specialist drafted in to assist the welfare rights team fight the benefits tribunals. The benefit systems, as we know, and employment is a daily struggle for many people with autism due to barbaric assessments and point scoring systems, which most often than not they don't benefit from. As we all know, employment is of massive barriers too for many extremely talented people who, without understanding employers, will never have the opportunity to showcase their wealth of talents. Autism training should be mandatory within North Lanarkshire Council so that we ensure that we continue to be an open and inclusive employer too. We should be inspiring to be an autism friendly authority and be an autism accredited employer. It's not a disability, it's a different ability, and for many it's their superpower, and that's invaluable for an employer. So we need a local advocate to work for good practice. We need to be flexible, we want to be innovative, we want to have information and support services for children and adults throughout our communities who can ensure local voices are heard throughout communities. I'm just going to finish today as well with one of my constituents. Shona Davidson is a mother of 3 living in Wishaw. She has fought all her life for autism awareness for her 3 sons who are absolutely brilliant boys, very inspiring every day, high functioning. They've got so much to give and getting on with their lives. Shona went on to do a human geography degree and she's published research on the built up environment for people with autism. She's spoken passionately at conferences about her experiences, and she's now gone on to do autism accredited training and teach other people about autism. And I think she's a credit to us all in our local community. We're lucky to have her. And I think that we need to build on people like Shona's experiences and Heather's constituent that Heather spoke. We need these local people on board to give their experiences and be involved in that process. And we're all fighting for the Commissioner, but we need to also fight at a local level, and we just need to take it that one step further, and that's why we put in the amendment today. Thank you, Provost.
Councillor London.
Thank you, Provost. It's a pleasure to second the amendment today. Can I begin by paying tribute to Councillor Brannan McVeigh and Councillor Mooney for bringing this important issue to the virtual chamber, and to my colleague Fiona for the thoughtful amendment that's been lodged. There's much in what's been said already that I'll echo in my contribution, including welcoming the flag flying outside the Civic Centre. I also want to pay tribute and commend Enable Scotland, the National Autistic Society of Scotland and Scottish Autism, as well as those individuals, families, carers, professionals and academics who've come together to campaign for change. In my remarks this afternoon, there will be a focus on autism, but I recognise the breadth of the issues covered in the motion. Provost, the vision and aspirations of the Scottish Government's strategy on autism, which concludes this year, have been incredibly welcome. And whilst the strategy is coming to an end, the commitment to the strategy's vision is undiminished. The priorities within the strategy delivered hope that we will take us closer to our vision for all autistic people living in Scotland. However, in coming to an end, it should be said that there is still more work to be done to realise the aspirations, including on diagnosis, post-diagnosis support, additional support in schools, access to employment, social care, quality and appropriate healthcare, and housing and advocacy, as well as training for professionals and greater understanding among society. Whilst I know firsthand there's more work to be done. Whilst I must say I'm somewhat hesitant and slightly nervous. It's a very rare thing to share with full council today, and I've never spoken publicly to an audience about autism, nor have I spoken about my own experience. But considering the work we have to do as elected members, on diagnosis in particular, it's important to speak openly about lived experience and debate. For my part, the journey to diagnosis for me is still underway. After 13 months of waiting, it all starts with the GP discussion and sharing so much about your everyday life and what makes you tick as a person. Sometimes it's about the unique things that make you tick as a person. And then you get the autism spectrum quotient form, known as an AQ10. You fill that out, and if you're scoring at a certain level, then there's a follow-up dialogue. And here's the clincher. You then, as an adult seeking diagnosis for autism, require to be referred to a specialist out with Lanarkshire for assessment and diagnosis. And the waiting times are varied. That's where my journey is at right now, somewhat in limbo. And I know that for some of my closest friends, they find themselves in a very similar position. Provost, speaking about these matters shouldn't be taboo. They shouldn't be seen as something to be judged by others. And let me say this, in the political world, I would hope that talking about it is seen as a strength, not a weakness, something to be promoted, not discouraged. Turning to the campaign, Our Voice, Our Rights, I'm sure all of us can agree with the spirit of a campaign that's ambitious to make Scotland the best country in the world for autistic people and people with a learning disability, a country where human rights are respected and upheld, a country where everyone has equal access to the services and support they need, a country where autistic people and people with a learning disability are active citizens and are fully supported to fulfil their potential. Of course, in today's amendment, it's about how we get there, not only nationally, because we support the thrust of the campaign, but also locally too, the action we could and should take. One example of a practical action that could be taken locally or nationally is an idea first mooted by a close friend of mine, and Fiona's already mentioned her today, local North Lanarkshire resident Shona Davidson. Shona's mum to autistic children who are brilliant and inspiring. I'm lucky to know all of them and call some of them friends. Miss Davidson's own experience have helped shape her proposal for an autism accreditation scheme. And that includes mandatory training for employers who take part, providing them with the tools to employ more autistic adults and support them in sustaining their employment in autism-friendly working places, including the built environment. I was proud when Shona's motion passed overwhelmingly at SNP conference. The creation of an autism accreditation scheme provides us with an opportunity to measure the autism friendliness of employers. And it's just one practical example that we have and could introduce locally or nationally to make a difference. I believe fundamentally in the importance of the line in the amendment, which calls for local consideration of the actions we can take, either as a local authority or as a local partner in taking action to create communities that are the best in the world for autistic people and people with a learning disability to live and grow up in.
1 minute.
To conclude, Provost, only through collaboration will we be able to truly improve the lives of autistic people and create the kind of North Lanarkshire we all want to see and live in. A fairer North Lanarkshire, a more equal North Lanarkshire, a North Lanarkshire for everyone. Thank you, Provost.
Thank you very much. There's nobody indicated they want to come in. Councillor Fotheringham to sum up.
Provost, could I be so bold as to ask my colleague to hold on a second? We've spoken across chamber today here with United Voice, and I wonder whether we could reach our hands across the virtual screen and composite together, agreeing that we will look at supporting the national campaign and bringing forth local action. I think it's imperative that we lead by example, and sometimes we need to put our colours to one side and stand beside our family, friends and neighbours who are living this experience every day. And Jordan, I hope your wait is not too long. So I would like to put that offer out there across the chamber without the consultation of anyone other than my magnanimous self. And I hope that we can perhaps find a way to unify in this very important week on this very important motion.
Councillor Fotheringham, are you happy to accept that? And we no need
Yeah,
to
I think,
divide on
I think Heather has just completely summed up exactly what my summing up was going to be. That I think this is certainly a motion that we should be working together on, and thank you. And yes, we are happy.
So there's no need to go to the vote on that, no divide. Thank you very much.
Provost, Councillor Baird has indicated he wishes to come in, and also just before we move on to the next item, I'd just like clarification on who's formally going to be the mover and who's going to second the composite motion, just for the purposes of the minute.
For the minute, so who's going to, just for the clarification in a minute, who's going to be the mover and who's going to be the seconder?
Fiona, can we split the difference? Can I move and you second?
You happy enough with that, Andrew?
Happy with that.
That's great. Thank you, Provost.
Councillor Baird, there's no need for debate on this because there is no divide on it. Are you happy enough with that? But there is no divide on it, Councillor Baird.
Sorry, Provost, it was just a contribution that I wanted to make.
Well, if there's no divide, we don't need contributions. Sorry about that, Councillor Baird.
Well, you know, I did put my comment in before, you know, you went to the summing up.
I never seen your comment. It's not come up in the screen. And
Andrew knows, but the IT, there seems to be a lag. So it's very simple. I wholly, you know, agree with everything that Heather's saying. But one of the things I wanted to put on record was the fact that North Lanarkshire as a council sort of abandoned the autistic community.
Councillor Baird, sorry. No, Councillor Baird, no, sorry, we're moving on to the next item because there is no divide in this. We'll move on to agenda item 9, which is a notice of motion from Councillor Douglas, seconded by Councillor Burgess, with an amendment from Councillor Carragher, seconded by Councillor Goldie. Councillor Douglas.
Thank you, Provost.
Point of order. Point of order, Provost.
What's your point of order?
The point of order is I was entitled to make a contribution.
When there is no divide, we don't have contributions. When there is no divide, we don't have contributions. When we can make an unanimous agreement, there is no need for it. We're moved on to agenda item 9 now. Councillor Douglas, thank you.
Thank you, Provost. Everyone within North Lanarkshire who has ever visited a park, playing field, or just went for a walk has at some time in their life stepped on or wheeled through dog mess. I thought it was a problem of the past, but it has reared its ugly head during lockdown more than ever before. It has recently been highlighted to me both by my casework within the council and on social media that the problem has reached astronomical levels within North Lanarkshire. I am sure there is not a councillor on this call tonight who has not received at some point over the last 4 years a complaint regarding the matter. Not only is dog fouling disgusting, but also has the ability to blind you or make you very, very ill. Dog faeces can carry a host of diseases, one of which will lead to blindness. I'm sure no one wants to see that ever happen to anyone, and I certainly don't. I felt it was important to bring the matter to the committee and give council officers an opportunity to explore with councillors. This will give us the best chance of coming up with a long-term solution. Every council in the UK has a policy in the matter, and I hope council officers can explore these to ensure we get the right policy as soon as we can. I have much pleasure in proposing the motion. Thank you.
Councillor Burgess.
Thank you, Provost.
Colleagues, Councillor Douglas is of course correct in his description of North Lanarkshire problems with dog fouling. There has been a big increase in dog ownership and during this pandemic, and it stands to reason that there will be a big increase in dog walking and therefore dog fouling. It's not the dogs that are the problem here, it's the few irresponsible dog owners. More effort is needed to catch the dog walkers at the point where they allow their dogs to foul grass areas and pavements, but there again, you have a few who do pick it up, put it in a little black bag and promptly throw it in the long grass. Or if they are feeling really energetic, they toss it up into the trees. For what reason, I don't know. Can I also humbly suggest that we have larger bins in the areas where dogs are being walked on a regular basis. The bins in these areas are overflowing, not because of the general waste, but because of the volume of dog waste. And as a dog lover, I have great pleasure in seconding Councillor Douglas's motion. Thank you, Provost.
Councillor Carragher.
Thank you, Provost. The issue of dog fouling, it's been raised many.
Tracy, Tracy, I don't know if others can hear you, but I can't.
Okay, can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. Thank you very much.
Can you see? I'm actually having quite a lot of connection problems here. So let me know and I can turn my video off if that does help as well.
Normally it does help, but right at this moment I can hear you very clearly. Thanks.
Right. Okay. So I'll start again. Thanks very much. The issue of dog fouling has been raised many times at full council. In fact, I was involved in a motion that successfully passed on the 21st of June 2018, requesting the development of a promotional campaign on dog fouling and responsible dog ownership. Unfortunately, this campaign came to a halt due to a budget decision made in 2020. The SNP group calls again for the development by officers of the council of a new education and communications campaign on dog fouling and responsible dog ownership. I know that the council's website implies that dog fouling is litter, as it encourages members of the public to use the online service to report when a litter dog bin needs serviced. That's what led me to submit this amendment to Councillor Douglas's motion. Clearly, the promotional campaign undertaken by the council has not had the impact that we hoped. I firmly believe that the council and the community working together is key to tackling this problem. As a council, we need to encourage responsible dog ownership, but we need to provide the facilities for members of the public to dispose of their dog's waste. It's not good enough to simply pass the buck and say that dog owners need to take their waste home. This might be acceptable if their walk is close to home, but it certainly is not acceptable when we're actively encouraging people to use open spaces for their health and well-being. We have a role to play. Firstly, we need to encourage responsible dog ownership. As a dog owner myself, I find it appalling to see the level of dog fouling in the streets. I can't count the amount of times that either myself or Rudy have trodden on dog waste on pavement or grassed areas. I found myself even picking up another dog's waste as Rudy chose to do his business next to it. And I can tell you, none of the above makes for a pleasant walk. As street cleaning is no longer carried out on a regular basis, I think it's also key to ask members of the public to report dog fouling. The street cleaning team always respond quickly, but obviously they have to know where to target. It is true though that there's an issue with lack of bins in areas used by dog walkers. And I can see a link to these areas not being on routes that's accessible to waste vehicles. This amendment is to request a review of such areas and to look at ways to provide members of the public with a waste solution. I would request that we look at this both with current solutions, i.e. bins, but also at possibly providing solutions in areas that may be like more greener solutions. Councillor Larsson recently mentioned an idea that she'd heard that a young person had suggested, and it was a type of, I'm going to call it like a deposit area that went into like an underground bin, I suppose like a dog waste composter. I think that's something that we could also explore as well. With regards to bins though, the council's recent suggestion of smart bins came into my mind, and I'd hope that if the council has plans to change their direction regarding public waste services, that we as elected members would be the first to know about their plans. We should be kept updated on an ongoing basis of their intended model, not just provided a paper when it's a fait accompli. North Lanarkshire's aim is to be the place to live, work, invest and visit. So please, let's work together on this. Elected members, council officers and members of the public. We need to do everything that we can to ensure our streets and green areas are safe for members of the public, not shirk our responsibility, and I ask that you support this amendment. Thank you.
Councillor Goldie.
Thank you, Provost. When my colleague said I was the best person to second this motion, I hope it was because of my scientific background and not because of the subject. Anyway, let's kick off. Dog waste is something that we've all experienced. Every councillor's had something in their mailbox about it. And as well as it being unsightly, foul and unpleasant, it also carries health risks to many people, including the young and the immunocompromised. Toxocara is spread by the ingestion of eggs and larvae and cause numerous mild, non-specific symptoms such as abdominal pain, rash, fever and cough. And if the larvae enter the eye, you can end up in blindness. Across Western Europe in 2014, it was estimated that it was between 3.5 and 34% of dogs were infected. That was across Europe. I don't have specific figures for the UK. In 2014, there was an article in the Annals of Allergy, Asthma and Immunology titled Asthma and Toxocariosis, and it indicated that Toxocara infection is significantly higher in people with asthma. People with asthma are one of the groups that we're trying to encourage to exercise more, and we're putting them at risk if there's Toxocara present. Dog faeces can also be responsible for the spread of other diseases caused by parasites and bacteria such as E. coli, Giardia, Cryptosporidium and Campylobacter. Education is a vital part of this. We must educate people. In 2010, there was a very successful Keep Britain Tidy campaign entitled There's No Such Thing as a Dog Poo Fairy, which encouraged people to pick up their dog waste and dispose of it responsibly. So anything that can be done to encourage people to clean up after their pets would be welcome. Now, I recognise that in some areas they've used things like paint transfers to illustrate dog waste that's not been picked up. To be honest, in my opinion, decorating dog faeces rather than lifting it could be described metaphorically as polishing a turd. We need to get this stuff lifted and off our places as quick as possible. But to encourage owners, we must act responsibly and must give them the facilities to dispose of the dog waste in the appropriate manner. And that's why we must look at the location of bins along regular dog walking routes and ensure that they're used correctly. I would encourage everyone to back our amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. Mark, I can only see Councillor McPake wanting in. And
Yeah, just Councillor McPake, Provost.
Councillor McPake.
Thanks, Provost, and thanks for the contribution so far. What I'll say, Councillor Carragher made a very good point about the smart bins, and that's my point. We will be supporting the motion because we are happy to bring this back and speak about it. But what we've all got to remember, members, is part of the budget of 2019-20 was to roll out a brand new system of bins. Now that all the bins have been procured, and some of them are sitting in depots right now. And due to the ongoing situation with COVID, we've not been able to roll them out. That process is stalled. So I think we've got to stand back a wee bit here. By all means, bring a paper to the next committee. Let's talk about it. But let's not get in the way of the work that we've already said we would do, because I can guarantee you, once we've got the smart bins along the dog walking routes that you exactly say, I think the problem, I'm not going to say it's ever going to go away. It's ignorance on part of some dog owners. But I think it'll make a big difference. So I would say I'm going to be supporting the motion this time for the simple reason it's an ongoing process being stalled by the COVID situation. Thank you, Provost.
Provost, to get in the chat, and I can't
Right. There's people going via Andrew as well, Councillor Johnston, so I will put your name on the list. But
in the chat that won't work.
right, Councillor Johnston, I've taken a note of that. But I've got
Provost,
and I will
Councillor.
let you in, I will let you in, but I'm taking the names off the chat bar first. Councillor Sophia Coyle.
Provost, can I just, if you don't mind, Councillor Beveridge has messaged me separately from Andrew as well. So if I give you the order that they come in on, if that's okay. So it's Councillor Beveridge, Councillor Sophia Coyle, and Councillor Tom Johnston.
Right, Councillor Beveridge.
Thanks, Provost. I welcome this motion and the amendment from SNP and my Conservative colleagues. I think it's both the amendment and the motion are first class, and I would ask if there were any way in which we could compensate this motion as well, because I think the amendment goes into more detail as regards the motion. However, I would say a composite motion would be beneficial here. Thanks.
Thank you very much. That is down to the movers, to Councillor Douglas and Councillor Carragher.
Can I interrupt, Chair? As business manager for the Conservative group, the Conservative group's not prepared to composite this motion. We put all the work into this, and the SNP, all they've done is add words onto it, so we're not prepared to composite.
That's fine. Thank you very much. Councillor Sophia Coyle.
Thank you, Provost. It's actually a major problem, and it's been an ongoing problem for a number of years, especially in the cemeteries of my ward and more than likely everybody else's ward. It's a problem that's never ever been resolved in all these years, and obviously there used to be, correct me if I'm wrong, there used to be a cleaning contractor that used to come out and clean these bins also, and I believe that's been stopped now because it's just been put in normal litter bins, which I think there is a problem there and it needs to be addressed, especially in the cemeteries with dog fouling, as grave workers are under constant abuse, and it's a mess. It's absolutely horrendous, especially when you go into a cemetery. Thank you.
Thank you. Before I let Councillor Johnston in, Irene Lamond, who deals with our IT and keeps us all right, has asked if she could make a comment in the chat about the chat bar and the issues that people are having before we move on any further. Irene, do you want to come in and?
Yes, thank you, Provost. Could I just ask, I've checked with a couple of councillors who have said they have issues, and it seems to be what you had mentioned at the beginning, Provost, where it says 2, right? There, if it doesn't, you would have to select everyone from that drop-down list, right? It used to do that automatically, and for some reason now it's not doing it. So if you haven't selected that, then your chat bar, it won't actually send anything to anybody. So if you're having an issue, could you just check that you can select 2 from the drop-down list, and it should say to everyone, and then enter your message. Thank you.
Sorry for jumping in, but that option isn't actually there on my chat bar.
Right,
I agree with Councillor Carragher, it's not there.
Sorry?
Sorry, can I just say, Irene, that when you emailed me, when I went back in, everyone had appeared, but it wasn't there to start off with. So I now have everyone, but I didn't have it to start with.
Right. Can we talk to Irene? Can people contact Irene offline on this? There seems to be a point of order.
There's a point of order for Councillor Gallagher, Provost.
Councillor Gallagher.
It wasn't a point of order for the meeting, it was just so I could explain to Irene that there isn't a drop down for everyone, so it's not actually a point of order in any conduct or anything, Provost, so apologies for that.
People maybe can communicate with Irene offline in the meeting, but I had to click on everyone, and that's why I said that at the start of the meeting, because I had that same problem as well. Councillor Tom Johnston.
Provost, it was just to clear up the second paragraph of the amendments has got a very important point in it. part of it is a case that I was involved in. I understand that officials, in order to, it's possible to save money, but I understand that they're trying to concentrate waste bins in streets where bin lorries are coming round, and the men can simply empty the bins as the lorries go round. And I think this saves having to send men round to empty bins in more remote areas off the road. The problem in Cumbernauld, and I'm sure elsewhere, is that there's a lot of leafy footpaths where people go and walk the dogs. And if this policy is confining bins to where lorries can reach them in streets, then that's going to be a huge part of the problem. I'm dealing with a particular one around at the Cumbernauld Academy. So that's why part of that second paragraph of the amendment is in, because there seems to be a policy of taking bins away from possibly the very areas where people walk dogs. Thank you.
Mark, is there anybody else I'm missing off the list?
There's no one else indicated they wish to come in, Provost.
Councillor Carragher, to sum up.
Apologies, Provost. Councillor Stubbs has just come in there.
All right, Councillor Stubbs.
Sorry, I toyed with just letting this one go, but I just can't. Alan Beveridge made a perfectly sensible suggestion that we've got, yet again, a motion and amendment that have the same aims with maybe slightly better outcomes possible with adding the two of them together. And for Sandy Watson to say we've done all the work on a two-paragraph.
Councillor Stubbs, that question was asked. They come back and said no.
I'm just contributing.
We're not going to debate the rights and wrongs of compositing the motion.
I'm talking about the motion and the amendment.
If you want to add to the debate or the motion or about the motion and amendment, please do, but not about the compositing. That has already been answered.
Well, that's what I thought I was doing. I was encouraging members to look at the two, and I'm sure if a majority of members were in support of both the motion and the amendment, then I think that if we were to speak to the business manager in my own group and the mover of the motion, then there might be scope for the wording of the motion just to be added into the amendment in order that members can find a way to support the whole thing. It's not as simple as painting things on the streets. We do have to have a wider look at where the bins are located, and it's been perfectly well articulated. It's an incredibly strange position, although I get that the Tories are going down a particular route in the run up to the Holyrood campaign of we won't.
Can I say,
Councillor
Stubbs, the question's been asked, the answer have been given. They don't want to composite, so therefore we will be going to a vote on this. So keep to the points within the motion or the amendment.
Well, I'm trying to do that.
Councillor, keep on drifting off about a composite. The composite's not going to happen. So if you keep to the points that's in it, thank you.
Provost, the Conservative group will not composite this motion. We've made that clear already.
Councillor Watson, we already know that. Right, Councillor Stubbs.
So yeah, my point was that we have to look at the wider issue of where the bins are located, which has been articulated by Tracy Carragher already, and I know that my ward colleague Kirsten Larson's doing a lot of work with Friends of Monklands Canal, and that's one very specific example of a stretch of area where people, it's not just dog walkers, it's people walking and allegedly walk without a pet. There are no bins, and the council aren't in a position to put bins there. They say they're not in a position to put bins there at the moment. So we do have to have a wider look at it. I know Labour have, resolved to support the motion prior to the meeting, but I'd like to think that given the way the debate has gone today, they might find themselves that the amendment is certainly a better option to back. It encompasses everything in trying to tackle this problem.
Andrew, you've advised that Councillor Baird wants in.
That's correct.
Councillor McPake, you've asked to come back in, but you've already been in the debates. So sorry about that. Councillor Baird.
Sorry, having some issues there, Provost. It's just a brief comment on this. At one point, the council used to give out free dog poo bags. I believe they started stopping that about 2.5 years ago. Now we got those free through the sort of tax of the revenue raised from domestic waste. Our counterparts in South Lanarkshire still do it, and all the other neighbouring councillors still do it. So maybe we should take that burden back on. Not that it's a great amount of burden for people to go and pick them up within council offices. I believe there was a figure mentioned at one point that was tallied up that it costs the council £65,000 to distribute these free bags. So obviously, I think that should be looked at in the first instance, because if you can get free bags, it may may encourage people to pick it up more. It's just a suggestion that that's looked at. And just a further comment, both the Labour group in the past and the SNP group in the past have put very similar motions to the one that the Conservative Party's put forward here. We have had campaigns in the past on similar motions. So every other group, in the sort of 10 years I've been here, Sandy have also put the effort into doing the study and that. But if you feel that it's better for the Conservative Party to be seen as the champions on dog fouling, then you're very much welcome to it.
Councillor Baird, I know that you can still get dog poo bags in the first stop shop and local libraries when they're open. So that facility is still available. I know in my community, I know people that go and get them there. Mark, is there anybody else wanting in? I'm just conscious
Yes, Provost, there's another 3 speakers would like to come in. First of all, Councillor Larson, Councillor Douglas, and then Councillor Cameron.
Councillor Douglas, you will be allowed back in at the end to sum up as the mover of the motion. So I'll let the other speakers in. Councillor Larson.
Thanks, Provost. I just want to pick up on a couple of points that have been made already. In particular, my thoughts as they're unfolding are that as a council, it's not our kind of duty to find a one-size-fits-all approach in order to kind of save money. I think we have to look more closely at the intermediate data. We have to look at where people are walking, where the mess is. There's been a big focus, especially through the pandemic, on creating safe spaces for people, and obviously the mental health benefits and physical health benefits associated with being outdoors. Councillor Stubbs there picked up on quite a good example of the Friends of Monklands Canal, who have just cleared up in what I see as an act of very civic duty. They've created a wee community group that have cleared up a 3-mile round trip path around a canal, but they view it as a project that they don't want to commit the rest of their lives to it and spend all their days picking up other people's waste, rubbish and dog fouling. They want a long-term solution, and so they've asked for bins. They've been told that they would get bins, but the bins wouldn't get serviced and all kinds of things. So if you want to encourage people to go a 3-mile walk, I think we have a duty to consider, the needs of the local community when going that 3-mile walk, whether it's signage, whether it's having small bins, I don't know, but we should be coming together and focusing on solutions rather than just finding these one-size-fits-all approaches or saying we just can't do that because there isn't the money. Because when people do something really great in their local area, like bring it back to life and regenerate it and do these civic things, I think the people involved and working in a civic way should do everything they can to support them. So I just wanted to put that point on record. Provost, thank you.
Councillor Cameron.
Okay, yes, thank you, Provost. I'll be very quick. I wasn't going to make comment on this agenda item, but given nobody else has brought up given there has perhaps been a slip of the tongue, I felt it best to bring up that I'm sure myself and the rest of my colleagues realise that it isn't just men that are in our waste disposal services, and there has been a slip of the tongue by one or two councillors on that fact. I would just like to make it out in the public. I'm sure that was a mistake by anybody that made that comment, and the council recognises that we don't have a gendered service there. Thank you very much.
So our refuge operatives. Mark, I don't see anybody else.
No further speakers wish to come in, Provost.
Councillor Carragher to sum up, then Councillor Douglas. Councillor Carragher.
Thank you, Provost. You know, I would have been really happy to compensate this motion. I'm disappointed, but I can't say that I'm surprised that the Conservative group are playing party politics here, actually suggesting that they've done all the work and that we've only added words. You obviously didn't listen to what I said earlier on, because I referred back to the motion that I was involved in on the 21st of June 2018. It passed successfully. The whole council agreed to it. Unfortunately, it was basically dropped because of 2020 budget decisions, things that we lost because of those budget decisions were dog fouling complaint investigations, issuing of dog fouling fixed penalty notices, and the cessation of the Enough's Enough dog fouling campaign, investigation of backing dog complaints, and the erection of no dog fouling signage. So I can assure that, you know, I think all parties and none have done work on this over the years. Councillor McPake, I really would ask you to support the amendment. I don't understand how it would stall the progress of the smart bins. I understand what you're saying about COVID slowing things down, but I do think that this would just add to it. We're asking for the development of the education and communications campaign, just to make sure that when we get the message out there. Councillor Goldie mentioned about the health implications of this. We need to start with young people as well, and let them understand that dog faces is a problem, stay away from it, and for, you know, to encourage responsible dog owners and unresponsible dog owners just to dispose of the waste, and give them somewhere to do that. So this it's asking for a review to be carried out in the areas identified by local communities and environmental services as frequently used by dog owners, just to give us more data to allow us to make sure that, you know, that they're treating this properly, and we're going to be solving the problem. I mean, honestly, I genuinely would like us all to work together on this, elected members, council officers and members of the public, because I do think that together we can solve this problem. Once again, really disappointed in the Tories' view on this, but they are what they are.
Councillor Douglas.
Thank you, Provost. Obviously, I'd like to say thanks for all the wording and everything everyone has said today. We need to obviously get back to the facts that there's a major problem that affects every ward within North Lanarkshire, and I don't feel it's my job to tell the officers all the points that we want. The points that I'd put in, we're just asking them to look at that as well as part of it, but I feel that it's easier just to send it to a committee and allow the councillors to do their jobs. It's up to the council to bring all the options to us, and and part of my speech, to look at other options and to look at other councils across the UK and to see what works best for them and to possibly bring that in, obviously, to give us options as councillors. That is our job, to look at that. So the amendment doesn't really add anything to it. It just, as Councillor Watson said, it's words stuck on the end of it. And there's obviously only one group that's playing party politics with it. If Councillor Gallagher was so interested, I mean, they've all got my phone, they've got my email. You could have sent me an email, but you wait till today so you can stand in front of a camera and make this big thing that we're treating you very, very badly. And absolutely not. You could have called me, could have emailed me, but obviously it didn't. That doesn't play into your narrative. So my motion is very simple. It's asking it to go to a committee, and I expect obviously the councillor officers to do their job, and they will bring them options to an appropriate committee, for which I may not even sit on. But I appreciate it, and I'm much pleasure in proposing the motion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Andrew, can we go to the vote?
Yes, Provost. So we have a motion moved by Councillor Douglas and an amendment by Councillor Carragher. I'll call each member's name in turn, and if you could indicate whether you wish to support the motion, the amendment, or if you wish to abstain. Councillor Anderson.
Amendment.
Councillor Dinesh Ashraf.
Amendment.
Councillor Junaid Ashraf.
Amendment.
Councillor Baird.
Amendment.
Councillor Barclay.
Amendment.
Councillor Beveridge.
Amendment.
Councillor Brannan McVeigh.
Motion.
Councillor Burgess.
Motion.
Councillor Burrows.
Motion.
Councillor Cameron.
Motion.
Councillor Campbell.
Motion.
Councillor Carragher.
Amendment.
Councillor Carson.
Motion.
Councillor Castles.
Motion.
Councillor Michael Coyle.
Amendment.
Councillor Sophia Coyle.
Amendment.
Councillor Cullen. I think Councillor Cullen's an apology. Councillor Curran. Councillor Curran.
Sorry. Motion.
Motion, thank you. Councillor Curry.
Motion.
Councillor Damasio.
Amendment.
Councillor Doherty. Councillor Doherty? No. Councillor Doolan.
Amendment.
Councillor Douglas.
Motion.
Councillor Duffy.
Motion.
Sorry, that was Councillor Doherty. Councillor Duffy? He was having problems connecting earlier. Councillor Fannin.
Amendment.
Councillor Farouk.
Amendment.
Councillor Feeney.
Amendment.
Councillor Fisher.
Motion.
Councillor Fotheringham.
Amendment.
Councillor Gallagher.
Motion.
Councillor Goldie.
Amendment.
Councillor Goldsack.
Motion.
Councillor Gurley.
Motion.
Councillor Graham.
Motion.
Councillor Hogg is an apology. Councillor Hume.
Amendment.
Councillor Catherine Johnson.
Amendment.
Councillor Tom Johnson.
Amendment.
Councillor Jones.
Motion.
Councillor Paul Kelly.
Motion.
Councillor Peter Kelly.
Motion.
Councillor Kerr.
Amendment.
Councillor Larson.
Amendment.
Councillor Lennon.
Amendment.
Councillor Linden.
Amendment.
Councillor Logue.
Motion.
Councillor Loughran.
Motion.
Councillor McGregor.
Amendment.
Councillor McGowan.
Amendment.
Councillor Masterton.
Amendment.
Councillor McCullough.
Motion.
Councillor McKendrick. Councillor McKendrick? No. Councillor McLaren.
Motion.
Councillor McManus.
Amendment.
Councillor McNally.
Motion.
Councillor McNeil.
Motion.
Councillor McPake.
Motion.
Councillor McVeigh.
Motion.
Councillor Mooney.
Motion.
Councillor Morgan.
Motion.
Councillor O'Rourke.
Motion.
Councillor Pettigrew.
Amendment.
Councillor Quigley.
Motion.
Councillor Reddin.
Motion.
Councillor Rorty.
Motion.
Councillor Shevlin.
Motion.
Councillor Shields.
Motion.
Councillor Stephen.
Amendment.
Councillor Stevenson.
Motion.
Councillor Stocks.
Amendment.
Councillor Stubbs.
Amendment.
Councillor Alan Valentine. Councillor Annette Valentine.
Amendment.
Councillor Watson.
Motion.
Councillor Weir. Councillor Wilson.
Motion.
Councillor Woods.
Motion.
Thank you. So the amendment has 34 votes and the motion has 39 votes, so the motion is carried.
Thank you very much. Agenda item 10 at the start of the meeting, Councillor Gallagher indicated that she was removing this motion. So we'll move on to agenda item 11, which is a notice of motion from Councillor Stubbs, seconded by Councillor Linden, an amendment from Councillor Duffy, seconded by Councillor Brown. Councillor Stubbs.
Thanks, Provost. And before I start, a good bit of this contribution talks about the role of the chair of the council, Provost, and I want to be quite clear that none of it is personal to you. You happen to hold that position at the moment, but it's not about your own actions, but the actions of the powers that lie with the chair of the council in general. Now, we currently have a supposed Labour minority administration, if you believe the Labour leadership in the council. They get 32% of the vote in the council election in 2017, but they do continue to behave as if they speak for the whole of North Lanarkshire. The council is chaired by a member of a minority administration, and as a chair who has continually blocked democratic debate on issues brought forward by elected members. Now, while it's clear that Labour leadership like to work on the principle that all councillors are equal, but some are more equal than others, I'd remind them that we are still part of a democracy. The people of North Lanarkshire have a right to have their voices heard in this forum through their elected members. The recent changes to the standing orders made without any consultation with the main opposition saw councillors' motions, which more often than not come from the opposition, are now put to a vote not only without debate, but without the opportunity of the mover of the motion to explain why they've brought it forward. I'm not criticising the administration for not bringing forward any motions, because why would they? They decide the agenda, they control what's in the reports that are brought forward for approval. The same reports that we now review, debate and vote upon at the start of the meeting rather at the end, as it used to be. The standing order number 5 was never used when the administration's reports were at the end of the council meeting. So on standing order number 5, the sole right of the provost to block debate after 8 PM. I've mentioned this before and I'll continue to say it as long as it continues, because it's an absolute outrage. This council only meets 4 times a year. The standing orders as they are restrict the length of the meetings to 4 hours. That's 16 hours a year that we have to debate the policies of this council. The last few meetings and this one have been held on a substandard online hosting system riddled with IT issues. We've spent 10 minutes earlier on discussing the ongoing IT issues that we're having yet again. Voting on matters takes between 10 and 20 minutes. Debates take longer as members struggle to get their IT equipment to play the game and let them unmute themselves. All of this eats into the precious 4 hours that the administration believes is acceptable amount of time to allocate to meetings of the full council. So inevitably we come to 8 PM and we haven't finished the business. In the past, a simple motion was put that the meeting continue and the business would progress. Now, instead, we've got a member of the administration saying that we will continue past 8 PM, but that no speakers will be allowed. Important matters brought to this council by elected members on behalf of their local communities are put to the vote without the courtesy of discussion. It's anti-democratic and it's wrong. My motion tonight does not ask the council to put a never-ending time limit on meetings. It simply deletes the power that the partisan chair has to block debate on matters that might be uncomfortable for her party. As an interesting aside, I noticed that the last education committee lasted 6 hours. I'm not aware of any attempts to block discussions or debate on the important issues that were in front of the committee that day. So why do we limit debate at full council meetings? On to Standing Order 56, and I'll be brief on this one. We've had discussion on it before, I've made my points, my opinion's clear. I've mentioned this afternoon that the chair of the council being a member of the administration. So it stands that if she can, she'll refuse to allow an uncomfortable topic to be discussed. That is her right as chair. But if a majority of councillors want to bring forward a matter on behalf of their constituents, they should be able to. This motion simply seeks to address that. A simple majority of councillors can vote to suspend standing orders, removing the power of the minority executive to block debate on matters that, while uncomfortable for them, are important to the people of North Lanarkshire. Colleagues, please support the motion. I move.
Councillor London.
Thank you, Provost. Now, I welcome the opportunity to second this motion today and to follow Councillor Stubbs, who's made some very, very important points. Provost, democracy is what this motion is about. Discussion is what this motion is about. And local people is what this motion is about. And why? Because time and time again, the particular standing orders that have been referred to have been set up and used to prevent discussion of important issues, to prevent democracy from taking place, and to prevent local people from being heard in this chamber. And we see it here again today, Provost. We know that Labour here in North Lanarkshire aren't in favour of the right to choose a different future. But to state that political groups have numerous opportunities to make any changes to standing orders, and therefore no changes should be made, is not reflective of an ever-changing and modern council. Provost, to anyone watching today, this may seem like a technical debate about the rules of the council. But let me, in the next few minutes, bring to life exactly what it means for local people. Because this Labour administration has used these rules to block a list of truly important issues for the people of North Lanarkshire. Discussion over concerns about cuts to support provision in schools, in particular on cuts to classroom assistants, June 2017. Discussion on our concerns about the changes to waste collection and refuse service, October 2017. Discussion over school transport provision for primary and secondary pupils that local families are worried about in December 2017. Discussion on our calls for additional funding for women's aid services in North Lanarkshire and the reintroduction of free swimming for primary fives, all in March 2018. Our action to prevent the blocking of discussion or series of motions because of the rules of the 8 PM finish, which would have seen important motions, all of which was at the October 2019 meeting to be put to a vote only. Discussion on changes to van and trailer access to recycling centres across North Lanarkshire, blocked by this administration in June 2019. 6 so far, Provost. I hope people are keeping up. Our much-loved Kilbowie Outdoor Centre and our attempts to prevent its closure have been subject to much debate, including the last attempts to block its demolition, which Labour used standing orders to block again in February 2020. And then my final example, but certainly not exhaustive, because by this point I think I've given up looking at the examples of us being blocked, is the attempt to suspend standing orders to discuss and request a timeline for the restoration of culture and leisure services. That takes us to 8, Provost. I'm concerned that if I keep going on, I might run out of fingers. Provost, all of this and more demonstrate why these standing orders aren't about governance and development policy, but about absolute and total control. I want to reflect not just on the suspension of standing orders, Provost, but to the contributions on motions and debates, the right to which I believe has been restricted by Standing Order 5. Time and again, the standing order has been enforced without any consideration to the important motions still to be debated, without any consideration to the possible contributions of members and the enriching experience of hearing from a colleague on an item that matters to them and by extension matters to their communities. This place, Council, is meant to be for discussion, debate and decision. It is meant to be a place where the views of local people, those whom we are so privileged to represent, are given voice to. But how can that happen when standing orders are wielded against political groups and used as a weapon, as a means of stifling debate? Provost, to conclude, I say to the other parties in this chamber genuinely, and to colleagues in the independent group, this motion is not about party divisions. It is about the voices of councillors, individual and collective. It is about the opportunities for all of us to champion local people, and it's about reflecting on practice that isn't working. It's about doing things better. I hope that all of you will support the motion and, crucially, support all of us to keep giving voice to local people in this chamber. Thank you, Provost.
Councillor Duffy.
Provost, I seem to be having some issues with my camera, so I'll keep it off for now, just so my audio works for the purpose of moving this amendment. Provost, I'm frankly astonished to see another motion coming from the SNP group calling for more or further tinkering of standing orders. All members and political groups in here have had discussions, considered and debated numerous motions and amendments, and participated in several working groups to review standing orders for this council. I don't accept the points made by Councillor Stubbs and Councillor Linden that more time spent tinkering with these rules would achieve anything. Provost, when we meet as a council and carry out the duties, the important duties that are asked of us from our communities, and now probably more than ever, we should be focused on our recovery from this pandemic and the issues that matter most to our constituents, some of which we heard earlier on during the meeting and were very eloquently put by other members. The mover and seconder I picked up want more opportunities to discuss cuts. I welcome that, at least, and I would welcome a motion in future from the SNP group that finally asked their party in government to fund local government fairly so we don't need to discuss cuts. I'm disappointed that we're spending more time on council business to discuss things that are internal and process-led. The SNP group, time and time again, have initiated and participated in many negotiations with members and political groups on standing orders, and they spoke about democracy, and they must accept the will of majority members on this council. I move the amendment, Provost.
Councillor Brannan McVeigh.
Thank you, Provost. I'll second the amendment. I have to say, it takes me back to our days at 2017 when Councillor Stubbs in his role as business manager and my role as business manager often debated council standing orders. I do believe we've had ample opportunity to discuss, evolve and debate standing orders, and that has taken place throughout this term of local government. I think it's interesting that he started his narrative saying that this isn't about you, Provost, then said she and her throughout it, referencing a gendered role, and being the fact that you, Provost, are the first woman to hold that position, we can only draw conclusion to the fact that he is talking about you in your role. But what I would say to anybody who's not a Labour member is the Provost takes as much stick from Labour members about chairing the council than she does from others. But Provost, this isn't about you. This is about how we conduct our business with respect, with brevity. We can bring amendments and motions to any committee. Any member can bring a motion to council. It is imperative that we bring them timiously, as that then demonstrates the order in which they are heard. And it's imperative that we are then disciplined in our approach and how we participate in debate to make sure that council is not dominated by the same voices again and again. But we've demonstrated it here today. We've got the same people speaking again and again, and other members beyond their vote have said very little. And that is always a concern for me. We have to create an environment and a debate that invites all members to come in. And I do believe that any issue that my community has can have, whether it be an administration member or a non-administration member, bring forward. We've seen today in this meeting, as responding to our constituents and priorities that they have raised with us, articulated and brought, that demonstrates the cross-party commitment and ability of the council processes to engage with local issues as is heartfelt by our constituents. There is no need to change the standing orders. Tinkering achieves nothing, debate achieves much. I'm happy to support this amendment.
Thank you very much. Mark, see there's a list. Can you maybe clarify the order you get them in?
I've got the order here, Provost, for you. First of all, Councillor Larson, followed by Councillor Kelly, Councillor Carricker and Councillor T Johnston.
Thank you, Chair. This is a motion that I am so happy to speak on. I have to say
that I don't just like this motion, I love this motion, because it's a motion that seeks to make sure there are no barriers to representation and to serve in the community, which is what we're tasked with doing. This is, many people have made the point, this is a motion about democracy, and for me, a good measure of a good democracy is where you create powerful processes as opposed to powerful people. And powerful processes in a democracy should reflect the will of the people in that democracy. And as others have already made the point, the power share in this council does not reflect the votes cast at the ballot box. In previous motions to council, I have spoken about the Nolan principles that have, been doing their circuits on the news this week. I'm sure all members will have seen. And the Nolan principles look at transparency and accountability and all the good tests of good democracy. I'm really glad to hear Jordan's contribution today, because he made a list of all the things that we weren't allowed to speak about. And at the time when these events took place, it really angered me. It angered me because why are we here if not to discuss and debate and decide? If we don't have a debate on a motion, that sort of intimates that maybe we've all made our minds up about how we're going to vote before we hear any debate, before we've arrived here today. And whilst it's a well-known fact that we tend to vote as a group, we don't have to do that. And occasionally people do decide to break the whip or to go out on their own, and we have independent members here as well, Chair. And so I do think it's important, if somebody's moving a motion, that they get to speak to that motion. Today we only have a handful of motions, and yet we didn't let Councillor Baird make a small contribution. And Councillor Stubb makes the point that we have these meetings 4 times a year, 4 hours, 16 hours a year, and yet we have education committees on, one area of council business that go on for almost twice that length of time. There are so many problems with how we progress with these meetings, and the main one to me is that we're a meeting of councillor and we shut down councillors. We prevent them from raising and highlighting the important issues that we're tasked with representing. And in particular, I like the second part of this motion that says a change can come about with 50% plus one, because that sounds very fair to me, and very closely reflected to the composition of council. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Paul Kelly.
Thank you, Provost. Thanks for that. First of all, I think we have to be clear that the administration that runs the council is absolutely committed to dealing with the real issues of the day. The SNP brought this up around standing orders, as Councillor Duffy pointed out. These have been reviewed cross-party wise. They are absolutely fine. They're acceptable. This is a democracy. We know it's a democracy, but they are distracted by these issues. We're not. We're focused. I think the public need to know this. We are focused on getting through the pandemic. We don't live in a bubble. We're going to continue to do everything we can to deal with issues around welfare and support for people to get them through this really difficult period, and jobs and other issues, and we'll continue to do that and do it proudly and democratically. And I think it's important, because if the public are watching this, they'll think, why are they not discussing issues of the day? Why are they discussing standing orders? In terms of democracy, in 2017, the public went out to vote. The democratic result saw a Labour minority administration take control. That was the decision of the councillors that were in the chamber, democratically elected. And what you've seen since 2017 actually is behaviour, some of which you've seen tonight, is smears on Labour and Conservative members, Red Tories, etc., trying to disrupt the work we're doing and we as administration are doing to support our communities. Councillor Stubbs has struggled to accept democracy. I understand that since 2017. When we have gone out to the public, in the 5 by-elections that have taken place since, each one has returned a Labour councillor. So that's the public reflecting their view of what they think of the performance of the administration. And it's no surprise, and I'd actually ask people, go back and look at all the previous council meetings, go back and look at the meeting that went beyond 8 PM. I think there was 40 points of order by the SNP group. Disruptive behaviour at a time when we're facing a pandemic that's never been seen before, when the public are wanting us to focus on the issues that they're dealing with every single day. The behaviour of the SNP has seen disruption, and it's no surprise that you've lost another 2 members this week. And if you look at the number of councillors that we have compared to the number of councillors that you have, we have more, and we operate as a minority administration, and that's democratic and fair. As for Councillor Stubbs saying these aren't personal attacks on you, Provost, well, I think they are, and quite frankly, they're outrageous. You have been an outstanding Provost, a fair Provost, a democratic Provost. You've given a lot of people a lot more leeway than many would, and you've been a very supportive person to all the councillors in this chamber, and I think we'd all agree on that. So I don't take what Councillor Stubbs saying is not a personal attack. You've been very fair, very objective, and the role of Provost, for me, you've been the best Provost that North Lanarkshire Council has ever had, and I think that's reflected in what residents say time and time again about the way you conduct your business as a Provost in our communities, doing the things a Provost should do, objectively and fair, not whether it's a Labour resident or an SNP resident. You treat everybody the same, so keep doing what you're doing, Jean. As I say, this motion today is not relevant to what we're dealing with out there in society. We have reviewed the standing orders, and as I say, this administration will continue to do everything it can to support our residents and support people through this pandemic, and we will not focus on the games that are being played by the SNP. Thank you, Provost.
Councillor Carragher.
Thanks, Provost. I'm again having bandwidth issues, so I missed quite a lot of what got said there by Councillor Kelly. Maybe that's been a blessing, actually. You know, we're all here, we're all elected members, and we're all here to represent the members of our communities. We shouldn't, that shouldn't be controlled, how long you're allowed to discuss things. It's been raised how many council meetings we have and how that time has been limited. Someone said earlier about that we should be encouraging all members to come in, and that debate achieves much. So Jordan London, he actually mentioned quite a few motions that we were not allowed to debate on. Actually, several of them have been motions that I've been part of. The standing orders have stopped that debate. We need to change it. I'm afraid all that I'm hearing right now from the Labour contributions is democracy is a one-time thing. Let's forget how it would actually help the people of North Lanarkshire Council. The SNP are proposing this, so just forget it, sit down and shut up. And it's not on. We need to look at things. We need to look at things and change them when they're not working. Thank you.
Councillor Tom Johnson.
Thanks, Provost. Just to say that I think the Labour attitude seems to be that this council only meets 4 times a year. Okay, it meets for a budget meeting. Okay, you'll occasionally get a planning issue, sometimes another emergency. But basically, the idea of the council for 350,000 people in the 4th largest local authority in Scotland is that you only want it to meet for 16 hours a year. That is absolutely appalling in a democracy. It's totally out of date. It belongs to the days long ago when you had large Labour majorities, but with proportional representation, that is no longer the case. You've got multi-party compositions now in the council. But you seem to be wanting to stick to 16 hours a year for the 4 main council meetings, and you quibble about a few minutes at the end of it. I think that's an absolutely appalling attitude. You complain about the Scottish Parliament and things like that, and local government should have a voice, but you seem to be closing down the voice. For a party to move and support the idea that you meet rigidly for 16 hours a year is an absolutely appalling attitude in this day and age. The public want things debated about North Lanarkshire issues, and the Labour supported by the Tory party seem to be wanting to close that down and keep us to 16 hours a year. Absolutely appalling. Thank you.
Mark, is there anybody else? I'm conscious the chat bar's been playing up a wee bit.
Yeah, there's two further speakers, Provost. We've got Councillor Gallagher followed by Councillor O'Rourke.
Councillor Gallagher.
Thank you, Provost.
Provost, sorry about interrupting there, Megan. Provost, I'm trying to get through in this chat bar. That's why I've turned my. It's Tommy Morgan here.
Right,
That's why I've turned my screen off.
All right,
Could you add my name to that?
I'll add your name to it.
Thank you. Sorry, Megan.
It's okay, Tommy, don't worry about it. Thank you, Provost. It's always interesting when we're in debates and the SNP are quite clear in terms of which direction they want things to go, because every time they don't want support from the Conservative group, they always, try and, pin this, coalition. But when they do want our support, that's never mentioned. It's always interesting that happens. And the narrative is always changed to suit what the SNP are wanting out of this meeting. But just to get on to the subject of the motion, which is of course a standing order, something that we've revised time and time again. Now, if we actually look at the 4-hour meetings, the 4-hour meetings descend into chaos, shouting matches, and it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing for elected members of this council to behave in such ways that they do at times. And it's because of the amount of motions that come in that are usually triggered, that are usually, well out in terms of, political posturing, and we end up in shouting matches. So that's maybe why the meetings go on for 4 hours. It's actually because of the behaviours of councillors in this chamber, and I think that needs to actually be recognised as part of what we're talking about today. But if you actually look at the Standing Order 56, the Conservative group's currently got 8 members, so 50% plus 1 doesn't help the democratic process for smaller groups in this council. So if we had to look at the scenario where the Conservative group approached the SNP or Labour and they both said no, our voices would still be silenced. So let's get to the crux of it. This motion is to benefit the SNP and the SNP alone in terms of the debates they want to bring to this council. But in other circumstances, and I'll just use one that was at a recent council, there was a motion on mental health, a very good motion that Councillor McGowan brought to full council. And beforehand, I phoned her and I said to Councillor McGowan, would it be all right if we put in an amend, if you amended your motion and we'll get a paper brought to committee? Now, we did that before the meeting started because it was a very good motion and I just thought that a report being brought to a committee would be appropriate. So discussions can be had before meetings do take place, and I don't understand why some SNP councillors are painting that as a bad thing today. I just don't get it. But just to finish, Provost, on this issue, the SNP motion is not democratic either. So this full picture that they're trying to paint about the democratic will of people and the democratic process, it's a load of nonsense. So I think we need to be sensible about this, and the Conservative group won't support a motion that's not democratic either. So that's all I've got to say about it, Provost. I think we'll be supporting the amendment today. Thank you.
Councillor O'Rourke.
Thanks, Provost. Provost, I want to touch on the 8 issues that Councillor Linden spoke of that they want to change standing orders on. Most of these issues, the majority of them, had been debated through committee. They were actually cuts to council services, and the cuts had been handed down by their own party. Now, we've got to make cuts. None of them are popular, none of them want to be done, but we have to make them because their party in government is handing them down to us. They were democratically voted on in committee, and for them to then say that it's undemocratic, it's because they don't win the vote at committee that they feel it's undemocratic. It takes me back to 2014. If you don't win that one, then it's undemocratic, we need another one. And they continually go on like this. So, Provost, I'm supporting the amendment.
Councillor Morgan.
Thank you, Provost. With these difficulties, if you don't mind, I'll speak with the screen off. Maybe that's an advantage. I hadn't intended to come in today. I didn't think there'd be too much discussion on this. But as I listened to the discussion, I put a few points together I think it's worth flagging up. To sit here and listen to a motion from the SNP on the restriction of voting and democratic openness, I'm tempted to say, to alienate myself from all political parties now, it's a bit like listening, going to Boris Johnson for marriage counselling advice. The SNP talking about political control. On political control, I would ask, how can the SNP have the brass neck to come out with some of the comments in here? Some of the people that spoke supporting this particular motion, how can they have the brass neck to talk about political control when they are controlled by their political masters in Edinburgh? It might even be Bailison. An authoritarian political control that not just in recent times, but is becoming much more acute. Their modus operandi in politics is that you go ahead and hold the debate and then you ignore it. How many times recently have we seen parliamentary debates held, committees going into minutiae, hold the vote and then ignore it? Or the second, see, I was anticipating that because they don't like the truth. The second point is, if you don't get it and just ignore the debate, what you then do is you don't bother bringing the report up. A classic case in point would be the example. I'm going to be brief here, Chair. I'm not in the game of creating controversy. I'm going to be brief. A classic case in point of controlling the agenda is just don't bring the report up. A classic example of that being the state of Scottish education and a report that's been kicked into the grass 2 or 3 times, kicked into the grass again for obvious political reasons. Chair, to sit here and listen to a political party talking about political control, I'm finishing.
Councillor Morgan, there's a point of order been made. Councillor Bartley, you made a point of order.
Sorry, Provost, loath as I am to cut Councillor Morgan short, it's really in light of relevance here. We've went right off the subject of what this motion and even what the amendment is all about. So it's really not relevant. Sorry, Provost. Sorry, Tommy.
Provost, you're muted.
Sorry, I'm still on mute. Councillor Morgan, can you stick to council issues, which the motion and the amendment are about, rather than national issues, please, when you're finishing up? Councillor Morgan. Councillor Morgan, are you finished? Mark, is there anybody else wanting in?
Yeah, Provost, we've got further speakers. We've got Councillor Beveridge and then followed by Councillor McNeill.
Councillor Beveridge.
Thanks, Provost. The benefits of being an independent councillor, answerable only to the electorate, no political masters. Democratic process. It's insulting to our Provost and this council to suggest that she and us, we do not adhere to the democratic process. What the Provost has had to endure in past meetings is evident for all to see, as Councillor Kelly stated. You only need to look back at previous meetings to see what the Provost and our officers have had to endure in the name of democracy and freedom of speech. To say North Lanarkshire Council is not democratic and does not allow freedom of speech is wrong. I support the amendment. Thank you, Provost.
Councillor McNeill.
Thanks, Provost. I mean, I'm listening to points being made here about trying to block debate, and nothing could be further from the truth. I think if anyone could have a grievance about the Provost and not being allowed to say things, it's certain Labour councillors and ex-Labour councillors who have suffered at the hands of the Provost at times. But we accept the role of the chair because she's democratically elected as Provost of this council, and she's more than fair to everyone, in spite of the fact that she's been treated quite dreadfully at times by certain members of this council. But she puts up with it and she gets through it, and she gets the meetings conducted eventually. Now, we've visited this I don't know how many occasions now, we got all the groups, business managers together to come up with some ideas, and I thought we'd finally got it sorted out, but no, here we are, it's back again. Now, I can't remember what meeting that was we were at, but there was points of order and points of order and points of order, and that must have took up something about an hour and a half of that particular meeting, and none of them were points of order. Was that democratic? Really? And as far as the Labour minority administration, this Labour minority administration has worked well for all of the residents of North Lanarkshire, irrespective of what party they voted. We have did our best. We have the committees where we go into everything in great detail. The officers turn up, they're asked any questions, they explain the reasons behind decisions being made, they explain the actions they're going to take to try and improve things for the residents of this council. We've had by-elections 3 times in Fertisset, once in Thornleywood, and once in Coatbridge, all returning Labour councillors to represent them because of the good job that's done by the Labour councillors within North Lanarkshire Council. Jordan mentioned party divisions without even a smile. Without even a smile. We've watched political theatre like nothing in earth. This last number of months when we've watched the Alex Salmond, Nicola Sturgeon show.
You don't need to come in my point of order.
Well, that's a matter for me to say, Provost, frankly. If I say point of order...
Right, on you go, Jordan.
Thanks. Cheers, Provost.
We'll just get the timing.
So just so that everybody who's perhaps listening at home is nice and clear, Councillor McNeill is straying out areas that he doesn't need to, and I think that, Provost, is what you were going to say. But just so everybody knows that the SNP group aren't prepared to take it, I'm happy for you to make that adjudication, Provost. And there's a smile for you, McNeill.
And Ian McNeill knows I will make that adjudication because I've already asked Councillor Morgan, stick to council business, the amendments of the standing orders and the democracy within North Lanarkshire Council, and let's not go into national politics, Ian. Thank you very much.
Okay, Provost, I shall stick, and as Jordan wants me, I shall stick to council issues. But let's talk about the division within the SNP group in North Lanarkshire. Is that relevant? I mean, Jordan's short leadership, what, 2 or 3 weeks, and 2 of his councillors have deserted him already, for goodness sake. Come on, Jordan, come on. Anyway, this grievance politics, we've had enough of it. We've even had a motion today about motions. The things that matter to the residents of North Lanarkshire are schools which are failing schools are failing their children. North Lanarkshire children, because there's not enough funding going into schools, because the Scottish government...
Provost, there's a point order for Councillor Larson.
Councillor Larson.
Thanks, Provost. I believe that Councillor McNeill has already, in just 2 seconds, strayed again into issues that are not relevant or pertain to the motion.
I don't see that myself. Right, Councillor McNeill, finish up. Concentrate on the council business. Thank you.
Provost, I had thought that North Lanarkshire schools were council business, but
just continue.
I could be wrong. We've got schools that are failing their children. We've got hospitals not fit for purpose. I mean, this council's been starved of funds by SNP austerity. That's what's important to the people of North Lanarkshire. And I'm just going to leave it there, Provost.
Thank you. I don't see any more speakers, Mark.
Sorry, Jean. Sorry, Provost, could I get in a chat? Thanks, chat bar.
Councillor Feeney, on you go. As I say, I know people are having problems with the chat bar today.
Provost, Councillor Baird has also intimated he wishes
right,
to come in.
I'll put him down after Councillor Feeney. Councillor Feeney.
Thanks, Provost. To this debate, and I'm quite interested that I'm hearing quite a few councillors are saying they don't believe that the council is working with democracy at the forefront. I can only speak, and that raises alarms for me. I can only speak through my own personal experience. I'm somebody that has had to leave a group within the council, and the reason being that I didn't vote in a certain way. I had my personal belongings thrown out of my office, and I was told the reason for that was I had to be safeguarded. So if we're talking about democracy, that must be the reason why a lot of councillors don't like to come on and debate issues, because there is a fear of bullying and what's going to happen to them.
Councillor Baird.
Better late than never. I did raise a point of order 10 minutes ago, but you did come in 5 minutes after and stop Councillor Morgan's diatribe. So yes, I agree with some of the accusations that have been made today based on this, because anytime I speak, Jean, sorry, Provost, you usually can on the button putting me off because you don't like what you're going to hear. Every turn at every council meeting since you took that chair, I thought Jim Robertson was really bad and slow at interceding when it was our own party colour, but you really are slow in it. And we've witnessed that today. If you time between the time Tommy strayed and you intervened,
There's a point of order by
I had
Councillor
also
Paul Kelly.
made comment.
There's a point of order.
Yeah,
there's points of order coming, Councillor Baird. Councillor Paul Kelly.
Thank you, Provost. Point of order. That what Councillor Baird is saying isn't relevant to the motion or amendment. These are just personal attacks on you as the Provost, and it's not acceptable.
Councillor Megan Gallagher.
Provost, point of order. Councillors should be respectful to one another, and I can't see any respect being shown in this debate today.
Councillor Baird, you've heard the points of order. And
Councillor Beveridge as well. Sorry, Provost. Sorry for interrupting.
Councillor Beveridge, a point of order.
Thanks, Provost. From an independent point of view and not attached to any political parties, Councillor Baird has been personal against you again. If he's wanting to go through a process of complaining about you, Councillor Provost, there's a way in which you can complain. It's not in an open forum here. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Councillor Baird. You can continue, but the points of order are all correct. You were getting personal about the way I chaired the meeting. If you have issues about the way I chaired the meeting, the Chief Executive is sitting in this meeting, and as is the monitoring officer, and please feel free to speak to them at the end of any council meeting if you're not happy with the way I have chaired the meeting, and they will point you in the right direction and how you deal with it. So if you want to continue your comments without personal attacks. Councillor Baird. Not coming back in. I see there's another name come up in the chat bar. Mark, is there only one?
There's actually two, Provost. Councillor Fannin, Councillor Fannin, apologies, wishes to speak, followed by Councillor McNally.
Councillor Fannin.
Thanks, Provost. I'm currently, as you know, an independent councillor, having previously been a Labour councillor. And if I'm honest, my heart will always be with the Labour Party. However, having sat through several full councils and having the freedom of not being restricted by a 3-line whip, it's been very liberating to be able to vote any way my conscience sees right. And I've been an independent councillor for the last 15, 16 months, and not once has any political party approached me to look for my vote on any motion or amendment. I wasn't actually going to speak on this issue, but when my colleague Councillor Feeney gave a contribution, it was really quite sad. Actually, it was very sad and quite distressing to see some of our former colleagues smirking and laughing at her. I do think the debate is restricted at times in this chamber, and I'm saying that as someone from looking outside, outside in, if you like. It is restricted, and I think that's maybe because when people or colleagues or councillors speak and they're laughed at and mocked, it stifles the debate and it makes people not keen to speak out. I do think it's a culture where it's not, you're not able to express yourself properly for the fear of being laughed at or mocked by Labour, Tory or SNP councillors. And I would say to all of you, the way forward is definitely being an independent councillor. Thanks, Provost.
Councillor McNally.
Thanks very much, Provost. Similar to others, I wasn't going to come in on this, but I do think that a lot of the attacks that have been made, a lot of the contributions from certain members, Provost, have been directed personally at you, despite the sort of guarantee by the mover of the motion that that wasn't going to be the case, and it sadly descended into that, and I think that's unfair. And I think it puts you in an unfair position as well, Provost. I do want to say just one brief thing, and that is there is a set of documents that are contained within the email that Mark Hamill sent out along with the notice of this meeting. And that runs to about 100, I'm just getting up on my screen here, Provost, 126 pages, right? And that is the panels and committees that we have in North Lanarkshire, because it's almost comes across, Provost, by certain people who have been contributing to this debate, that we meet a couple of times a year and that's it. And it's far from the truth. And actually, in fairness to Alan Stubbs, he did reference the 6-hour committee meeting. And listen, I get stick for having long committee meetings, I've got to say, so maybe I need to reflect on that. But that is where the vast majority of the decision making in this council is taken. It's taken through the committee structure that we have all agreed. We all have representation on the committees. The officers of the council make themselves available to each group, the SNP group, the Conservative group, the Labour group. I'm sure they'll do it to the ALBA group. They'll do it to, and they offer it to independents as well. And our officers will go and sometimes spend hours answering elected members' questions about the range of policy areas that we are talking about here in North Lanarkshire. This full council does take place on a, once a cycle or whatever, but the overwhelming majority of the decision making of this council is done through the committee structure, where everybody has their say. There are amendments, there are a whole range of sort of discussions that take place. And I've got to say, Provost, when you look at other councils, when you look at parliaments, they don't have an endless period of time to discuss every single item that we would like to discuss. We don't see 6 hours of First Minister's questions every week. There's a clear time scale that is directed by the standing orders that have been agreed, and within for that particular organisation. So let's get a wee bit of perspective here. We've spent a long time talking about this. I remember at the last one we spent 40 minutes. I think at quarter to 8 we spent 40 minutes talking about whether or not we should stop at 8 o'clock. I mean, this is just knowing the interests of the people in North Lanarkshire. So I would ask members to recognise that and support the amendment.
Thank you very much, Mark. I can see some other names come up, but I'm conscious not everybody's names coming up in the bar. Could you just confirm who you?
Yeah, Councillor Barclay, followed by Councillor Anderson, Provost.
Councillor Barclay.
Okay, thanks, Provost. I totally agree with Councillor McNally about the fact that we spent 40 minutes discussing whether we should stop at 8 o'clock, and we didn't stop at 8 o'clock because we spent that long talking about it. I think it was 20 to 9 before we actually stopped. And if we had discussed the motion on that particular full council, we would have had a debate and a discussion and a vote on it without actually discussing whether we should discuss it. And I think to bring it back to what this motion is all about, is about the debate within the full council. Now, I agree there's with the committee structure the way it is, and there's a lot of debate and an awful lot of good stuff that's coming through. But there are motions that don't fit in to the committee structure. They're about other things that are within council that are important to the people that we represent. Now, by making a decision that at 8 o'clock we're going to stop at 8 and we're not going to debate, it will go straight to a vote. There could be people within this chamber that haven't made their mind up, and there's no discussion and no debate. Now, there's been some absolutely fantastic debates in this chamber, a lot of consensus within this chamber, and that's what this motion is intended to do, is to take the pressure off whoever is sitting in the chair, whether it's still our current provost whether it's another provost, whether it's somebody in the future. It's about taking that pressure off so that if there is a good debate that is going on a particular motion, that continues and it allows the proper democracy to go ahead. So there has been an awful lot of toing and froing and a lot of politicking within this discussion. But is it possible to take it back to exactly what this motion was all about? And it was supposed to be to give democracy to every single one of us, so as that when we do have a good debate going on a particular motion that happens to be the last motion someone has got in, but it's a good motion, regardless of where it comes from, that we get that opportunity to do it. That's what this motion that we have brought forward today is intended to do. And that's why I'm asking for to support the motion. Thank you.
Councillor Anderson.
Thanks, Provost. I had no intentions of coming in, but some of the contributions have been wild. I don't disagree with Councillor McNally's points. Personal attacks were not just aimed at you, actually, but Councillor McNeill's particularly personal and nasty attack in reference to Councillor London's leadership were very nasty and very much misplaced.
Mark, I don't see any other speakers this time.
No further speakers, Provost.
Councillor Duffy, and then Councillor Stubbs to sum up. Councillor Duffy.
Thank you, Provost. And firstly, I want to echo the words of Councillor Kelly. I think it's important to say that, you know, I and majority of members in this council have the utmost respect for you as chair and Provost of this council and the
Councillor Duffy, your mics went back on.
Provost, just while Councillor Duffy's fixing his connectivity, Councillor Woods had actually intimated through a different medium that she wishes to come in.
I've already started the summing up, been allowing calling the people to sum up. Sorry about that. Councillor Duffy, if you finish your summing up.
Thanks, Provost. So the first theme of the debate, which I listened to intently, was around the motion, and it was the feeling Councillor McNally picked up on that we don't have enough time to represent our constituents, or we're somewhat constrained within the council meetings. It made me reflect on, you know, previous meetings and previous motions that we've considered and been presented to this council, some of which, you know, for example, independence in Catalonia, the many standing orders debates we've discussed and debated, including today, and, you know, my personal favourite, which piece of cloth flies outside the civic centre on a flagpole. None of these impact the people in our communities, and I think we should reflect and think of how we spend our time better. The second theme was on the democratic deficit, as it was put, and on democracy in a whole. And on that, Provost, I'll allow that democratic process to take place by finishing up my summing up and allowing the vote to proceed.
Councillor Stubbs.
Thanks, Provost. I've tried to take notes from all the contributions. I'll try and touch on everything if I can read my own handwriting. First of all, on the Frank McNally's point, that personal attack, Frank McNally and Lynn Anderson's combined point about personal attacks are completely unacceptable, and not where this debate was meant to arrive. They're unacceptable no matter who it is that's making them or who or where they are directed. Can I pick up? I'll probably be more substantial on Heather's point, but I just wanted to pick up on the point that in my when I started my opening remarks, I would try to make it clear that this was not about you personally, Jean. It was about the Provost or the chair of the council, no matter who they are. And yes, I probably did prefer to the Provost being a she, but I think members will forgive me, as I've only ever experienced a Provost who is a female and is referred to as she. So I apologise if that has made my remarks appear to be personal to Eugene, because they're not. And in fact, I think that in the main, this particular debate is an example of where you are a very strong chair and a very fair chair, given the number of contributions that we've had. It's not every chair that would allow that many people to speak in a debate. So I do think that there's a lot to be said for the qualities that you portray as the chair of the council. But that's not to say that the next time round you will be the chair, or anybody from within the current executive will be the chair. There is an election in a year's time. I think if I was in minority administration and looking at polls, I would be delighted that the current opposition had brought this particular motion, given that the polls point very much towards an SNP administration next year. And I fully expect that if I am part of an SNP administration or part of the group that is the administration, then my political opinion on what is the best thing to do in terms of how things are debated in the council might change. And that is just the way that politics goes. Frank, just as an aside, when you mention about the committee and you might want to, you'll be looking forward to me joining that committee. I'm certainly looking forward to, or maybe not the 6 hours of staring at a screen, but I certainly look forward to contributing to those long discussions. Alan Beveridge, on his contribution, I don't think I heard anybody saying that the Provost isn't sticking to the processes. I think the point that I made in my opening remarks certainly is that the Provost very much sticks to the standing orders. That's why we're trying to change them. It is the Provost's right, absolutely, to invoke standing orders. It is our right as councillors to try and change them if they don't suit the majority of members. Tommy Morgan and Pat O'Rourke, typically valuable inputs. I've got nothing to say. Megan Gallagher, I laughed when you said, because you're right. I mean, when we're talking, sometimes we'll say a minority administration, sometimes we'll say a coalition. And to be fair, if we watch it back, I'm fairly sure if I didn't, and then I certainly meant to, was refer to it as the so-called minority administration, because we are all clear that there is a full-blown coalition on the go at the moment. It's getting smaller. A few people have made remarks about SNP members joining another party.
Provost, there's a point
glass houses and things like that. We should be careful.
There's a couple of point orders, and I know what they are because I was just away to come in. Councillor Stubbs, it is not a coalition. I know you're saying it's a so-called coalition. I can assure you it's not a coalition, but Councillor Douglas and Councillor Pake, correct me if I'm wrong, is that the points ordered you were going to come in?
It's certainly point order. I was going to come in and Provost. It was an absolute disgraceful comment, and I would ask you to get him to withdraw it.
I would agree, Provost.
As I say, it's not a coalition. I can assure you it's not a formal coalition. So could you stick to the points and don't bring in whether you perceive what you perceive it to be a coalition. If you could stick to the
get the points.
The debate.
Sorry, Provost, if I can come in there. COSLA is incredibly clear within the documentation that it is not a coalition.
No, I know that. Councillor Douglas. Councillor Douglas. Thank you. Right, Councillor Stubbs, finish your summing up.
Thank you. I'm just referring to the remarks that were made by the leader of the junior cup, the Tories, and she referred to it as a coalition. The 50%.
Can I say she never actually referred to it as a coalition. And again, Councillor Kerr, you keep on putting points up in the chat bar. The chat bar is only for when people want to come in and speak, not for comments. Thank you. Councillor Gallagher, is it what I've just told Councillor Stubbs up that I didn't hear you saying that?
It's also the use of the word she, Provost. I mean, can we use councillor or Megan Gallagher? You know, it's always leader of the Tory group and then she. It's disrespectful, Provost, to be perfectly honest with you.
That's fine. That's not really a point order, Councillor Gallagher. That's just people's terminology. Sometimes it was something that was said earlier on in the debate at the start about refuge men instead of refuge operatives. Sometimes people don't know how to speak on the kind of general neutral way. Could you finish up, Councillor Stubbs?
Thank you. Megan.
There's 1 minute left.
I can't. Surely not. All my time been taken up with points of
Provost,
order.
there's a point of order by Councillor Brannan McVeigh.
Councillor Brannan McVeigh.
Provost, there's actually a standing order within council, and I'm sorry to contradict you, but that actually says that we should refer to each other as councillor when in a council meeting or in committee. So we should actually never use each other's first names. We should always call each other by our office.
I'd tend to call everybody with the office, and so you are correct. If I look up my standing orders, I've got them in front of me. So if you could refer to people as councillors, Councillor Stubbs.
I'll try to do that. Councillor Gallagher mentioned that as a smaller group, the 50% plus one wouldn't help. Doesn't help either the independents or the smaller groups. It doesn't. On that theory, it doesn't help anybody. The 50% plus one means that 50% plus one of the councillors. Who it doesn't help is a minority administration. I've kind of lost where I am, and I feel my time has been taken up with the 4 or 5, 6 points of order that were made. Paul Kelly says that we should want to focus on the issues. That's exactly why we've had to bring this debate. I just want to pick up on, Councillor Kelly said that people talk about red Tories. It's a term that I've never used and never will. The Councillor Kelly's point that the debate is not relevant to the people out there. Councillor Linden had listed a number of issues that were important to the people out there.
That's your time up. And every time a point order is made, your time is stopped by Andrew. And that's why it's an officer that does the time, and so that these stop and start to pay the interruptions with point order. That's your time up. Can we go to the vote, Andrew?
Thank you, Provost. So we have a motion by Councillor Stubbs and an amendment by Councillor Duffy, and if you can indicate accordingly. Councillor Anderson.
Amendment.
Councillor Dinesh Ashraf.
Motion.
Councillor Junaid Ashraf.
Motion.
Councillor Baird.
Motion.
Councillor Barclay.
Motion.
Councillor Beveridge.
Amendment.
Councillor Brannan McVeigh. Sorry, I got Joyce.
Amendment.
Councillor Burgess.
Amendment.
Councillor Burrows.
Amendment.
Councillor Cameron.
Amendment.
Councillor Campbell.
Amendment.
Councillor Carragher. Councillor Carragher.
Sorry, it's technology problems. Motion, please.
Thank you. Councillor Carson.
Amendment.
Councillor Castles.
Amendment.
Councillor Michael Coyle.
Motion.
Councillor Sophia Coyle.
Motion.
Councillor Curran.
Amendment.
Thank you. Councillor Curry. No. Councillor Damasio.
Motion.
Councillor Doherty.
Amendment.
Councillor Doolan.
Motion.
Councillor Douglas.
Amendment.
Councillor Duffy.
Amendment.
Councillor Fannin. Councillor Fannin.
Sorry, Councillor Curry's amendment. Sorry.
Sorry, I didn't get a vote from Councillor Curry. If you could indicate.
It's amendment. Yeah, it's amendment for Councillor Curry. Sorry, my mic wasn't working.
No problem. Thank you. Councillor Farouk. Motion. Councillor Feeney.
Motion.
Councillor Fisher.
Amendment. Sorry, but one's working.
Thank you. Councillor Fotheringham.
Motion.
Councillor Gallagher.
Amendment.
Councillor Goldie.
Motion.
Councillor Goldsack.
Amendment.
Councillor Gooley.
Amendment.
Councillor Graham.
Amendment.
Councillor Hume.
Motion.
Councillor Catherine Johnson.
Motion.
Councillor Tom Johnson. Councillor Tom Johnson.
Motion.
Thank you. Councillor Jones.
Amendment.
Councillor Paul Kelly.
Amendment.
Councillor Peter Kelly.
Amendment.
Councillor Kerr. Councillor Kerr. Councillor Larson.
Motion.
Oh,
Sorry,
motion,
that was-
Andrew, thank you.
And Councillor Kerr. There was a motion. Councillor Lennon.
Motion.
Councillor Linden.
Motion.
Councillor Logue.
Amendment.
Councillor Loughran. Councillor Loughran. Councillor McGregor. Amendment, thank you. Councillor McGregor.
Motion.
Councillor McGowan.
Motion.
Councillor Masterton.
Motion.
Councillor McCulloch.
Amendment.
Councillor McKendrick. Don't think he's in the meeting. Councillor McLaren.
Amendment.
Councillor McManus.
Motion.
Councillor McNally.
Amendment.
Councillor McNeil.
Amendment.
Councillor McPake.
Amendment.
Councillor McVeigh.
Amendment.
Councillor Mooney.
Amendment.
Councillor Morgan.
Amendment.
Councillor O'Rourke.
Amendment.
Councillor Pettigrew.
Motion.
Councillor Quigley.
Amendment.
Councillor Reddin.
Amendment.
Councillor Rorty.
Amendment.
Councillor Shevlin.
Amendment.
Councillor Shields.
Amendment.
Councillor Stephen.
Motion.
Councillor Stevenson.
Amendment.
Councillor Stocks.
Motion.
Councillor Stubbs.
Motion.
Councillor Alan Valentine. Councillor Alan Valentine.
Motion.
Motion, thank you. Councillor Annette Valentine.
Motion.
Councillor Watson.
Amendment.
Councillor Weir.
Motion.
Councillor Wilson.
Amendment.
Councillor Woods. Councillor Woods? No. Amendment, thank you. The amendment has 42 votes, the motion 31, so the amendment is carried.
Thank you very much. Agenda item 12 is questions received in terms of Standing Order 51. There was one question received from Councillor Sophia Coyle, and the response from the service and the convener was circulated to everybody for the question. I'd be happy to take that as read, as we've been doing. Thank you very much, everybody, for the attendance. Thank you for the officers again for the support, and which had a few technical problems, but they got us through it, the meeting tonight, and hopefully everybody will have a lovely Easter break off work. Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you.